recognize Senator Haynes.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I would firstly like to congratulate you on your ascension to the office and say that it's one of the greatest privileges of my life to find myself in this chamber with you distinguished fellow senators. So my contribution on this bill is that although turquoise blue waters and white sand beaches have their appeal, the reality is that lower cost of living, access to professional advancement also have their appeal. I, on a personal note, was being lured by a potential employer overseas, and only the day before the election, the member for Christchurch West actually attested some documents for me that would have allowed me to pack up and leave to practice medicine in another territory. So the reality is that in our current climate, where we have to face realities of economic stagnation, unemployment hovering at around 10% for more than 10 years, youth unemployment at a staggering 30%, we cannot be surprised that people, young, old, skilled or unskilled, are exploring the opportunities of finding work in other territories or in other countries. In fact, we are signatory to the CARICOM Skilled Persons Act, which is what I was having sorted out, a CARICOM Skill Certificate, which allows the free movement of workers. So what I found interesting is that here we are encouraging people who have talents to offer to explore opportunities in other territories, but then telling them you can't come back home and serve in certain office, in high office. It is my personal belief that an island that is 21 miles by 14 miles will not have every opportunity for professional advancement, for personal development, for personal fulfillment, or for national development. And we really need to look beyond, because the limitations are not just geographical. Limitations also apply to our access to human capital. So here we have 280,000 residents, but when you consider that there are another 120,000 Barbadians residing in the diaspora, it would be a shame really to deprive ourselves of the skills and expertise and the worldview and the networks that those in the diaspora could contribute to our country, particularly at this critical juncture in the stage of our development. So why do some of our laws discriminate against our own citizens? It is my view that laws are written by men, and innately, the law then can be flawed. That is why the ability to amend law exists, and that is why we are here. We saw amendments to the Constitution as recently as in 2016. The Constitution was amended to alter, I believe it was the retirement dates for the Director of Public Prosecutions and another officer. I can't recall at this point. So amendments to the Constitution are not as uncommon as we're making it seem. And we have also seen another recent case, I believe it was in 2011, where an exemplary citizen who resided in the United States was nominated for a position to hold high office, and because he hadn't met the requisite residential requirements, a change had to be made to the law. And if that change had not been made, we wouldn't have our current Chief Justice. So I just wanted to lend my support to the bill as it stands, and I look forward to many robust debates with you guys over the next 5 years. I'm excited about everything that lies ahead, and thank you, sir, for obliging me.
Senator Grant. Senator Grant. Yes. Senator Grant.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me start by first joining with other honorable senators in acknowledging, thank you, the leader of government business, my friend, in acknowledging, sir, your election as president, and to say that I certainly look forward to a very exciting time in this honorable chamber. I would like, sir, to start by putting my contribution into context and speaking in relation to this bill with reference to what is practical, to what is beneficial, and what is contemporary. You know, sir, I'm sure that all honorable senators will agree that today's Barbados is significantly different to 30, 40 years ago. Indeed, today's global environment is significantly different to 30, 40 years ago. And therefore, as we speak to this bill, we must look at it in the context of what is practical for a modern-day Barbados, and not simply in relation to what happened 30 or 40 years ago. Mr. President, I remember when I was a little boy, not so long ago, sir, not so long ago. I hear people in this chamber saying that I'm about 25 years old, sir. So not so long ago, sir. I guess what I'm about to say, though, will in some way demonstrate how old I am, because I remember as a little boy going to Sewell Airport and seeing family going to New York. In fact, I remember, sir, 2 cousins in particular who left Barbados to go to New York. And so one of the things that struck me at that time, and one of the things that I clearly remember, is the amount of crying that people did. I mean, people cried enough tears, Mr. President. And the reason why that happened was because in those days, when people left Barbados to go to another country, there was no likelihood and expectation that you would hear or see from them in a short period of time. That's especially, and in some cases, sir, when persons were not legit, that is right. You did not know if you would see them again. And I say that, sir, because I want to bring us to today's reality. Because if you go to the Grantley Adams International Airport and you say farewell to family and friends, there's no crying these days. Because within hours, you could be utilizing the internet to communicate with that loved one or with that family relation. And the point has to be made that we exist in a global village. And therefore, as we speak to this bill, let us understand those new realities of this world that we are in, and let us understand that it is important for us to be able to provide the ability for Barbadians wherever they reside or have been residing to serve at the highest levels in this country. Sir, we speak very fondly of the diaspora. And I remember many years ago as well when we spoke quite a bit about the remittances from persons in the diaspora. And we talk even these days about leveraging their knowledge and their expertise. And if we want to be able to do that in this environment in which we exist, because, sir, we have to be very cognizant of where we are today, the realities of where our economy is, the realities of where our society is. And in order to ensure that the government has the ability to utilize all available resources to facilitate sustainable development of Barbados, it is critical that we are able to leverage the expertise, the knowledge, the competence of all Barbadians. And I think, sir, that it is critical that we look in a very serious way of ensuring that government is not denied that ability. So, you know, as I speak, I think a bit about the private sector of Barbados. You know that the private sector is able in a very short time to access and to leverage and to utilize the talents and the skills of Barbadians anywhere. In fact, they can utilize other persons as well. But the point that I'm making is this, sir, that we must not lose sight of the fact that in the same way our private sector is able to utilize the services of Barbadians across the globe, we should not deny that opportunity to the government to be able to so do. I think, sir, that would be an error, particularly at a time when, and I'm sure, sir, that you would have read the comments recently of the person who led the delegation from the IMF. The measures, he is referencing certain types of measures. You would have heard of a former governor of the central bank as well, making reference to the type of policy action that he would take. And I think, sir, that it is very important that all of us recognize that at a time when our economy is seriously challenged, that we are able to fully utilize all of the resources available to our country. So, you know, I have to say that in a sense, this debate is somewhat personal for me as well. There's that 12-month residency requirement. Sir, not so long ago, I spent 3 years in Grenada, managing the Grenada Tourism Authority. And I asked myself, if it was that elections were held in February or March or April of 2017, because I returned to Barbados at the end of, on the 28th of November 2016. Still very much, sir, in tune with what is happening in Barbados. Still very much, sir, communicating with Barbadians, coming to Barbados at least once a month.
I need to see your passport.
At least once a month coming to Barbados on my Barbados passport, sir. The only passport that I have, sir. The only one that I have. And I asked myself, not just in relation to Rudy Grant, because I am not speaking about me. I am speaking to the fact that it is, that I believe, sir, that I have a certain level of competence, expertise, knowledge, particularly within the area of management and within the area of tourism. And had I been in Barbados at a time just months after a general election, I could not have the privilege and the honor to be in this honorable setting. And I could not, with the legislation as presently is, as the Constitution as presently exists, not have the ability to serve. And I believe that that is a very important point and reinforces the fact that we have to ensure that we are able to fully utilize the skills and the resources of all Barbadians. I heard, sir, during this debate reference made to the time and the fact that we are in a rush, and the fact that you have to be conscious sometimes that you don't move too swiftly. I want, sir, to go back to the first point that I made about the global reality and global environment in which we exist. And I heard, sir, reference made in this debate to some discussion that spanned a period of 2 to 3 years. And I make this point, sir. We have to, in Barbados, we have to ensure that we function in a manner where we are able, in a more timely manner, to make decisions. The days for us, sir, taking 2 and 3 years, and if we take, sir, some examples from the past or the recent past, the days of doing nothing, the days of taking long to make decisions, those days must be over. Because we cannot afford as a country, sir, to sit and twiddle our fingers and to waste time when the world is moving ahead. And what I appreciate, sir, that you do have to ensure that you do not make errors. I want honorable senators to pay attention to the fact that we do not, in this global environment, have the luxury of time. Because as we take time to make very critical and important decisions, the rest of the world is moving ahead. Barbados is a small, developing country. We do not have a lot of resources, and we must ensure that we have access to all of the resources at our disposal. And we have to ensure that we utilize those resources in such a way that we can facilitate sustainable development of this country. And I say to you, sir, that this bill before this Honorable Senate does not simply speak to 3 individuals. No, sir. No, sir. It goes far beyond that. Yes, I do accept that an amendment to the Constitution would facilitate 3 individuals that have been identified, but the bigger issue is that we are, as one honorable senator said, I believe Senator Holder, that we must remove the discrimination and we must create that opportunity for all Barbadians wherever they reside to be able to make a contribution to the development of this country and the development of this economy. I've heard, sir, and I think as it relates to the issue of dual citizenship, from what I've heard in the debate, I believe, sir, that most persons seem to support the fact that you can have dual citizenship. The reality is this: there are many people who live and work in more than one country. That's a reality, that's a fact, that's the environment that we are in. And we have to ensure that our legislation, we have to ensure our constitution, we have to ensure our laws, that they are in keeping with the reality of the new global environment that we are in and the world in which we function. And let me say this, Mr. President. No one owes us in Barbados anything. If we are going to succeed in this country, we are going to succeed essentially by doing it on our own. We cannot expect that there will be those countries lining up, or individuals or foreign entities to be there for us if we are not prepared, sir, to do what is necessary to access all that is at our disposal. So, Mr. President, sir, I believe that this amendment is designed to be inclusive. I believe that it properly provides the opportunity for all Barbadians to be able to participate at the highest level. I think, sir, the aspect, I believe, in relation to Section 75, sir, contemplates providing an opportunity when there is no clearly identified leader of the opposition. I have, sir, no difficulty with that in principle. I believe that it is very important in a democracy to hear not only the voice of government, but also to hear the voice or the voices of those who may not necessarily support the government. And I believe, sir, that our political leader, the Prime Minister, has clearly indicated that that is the kind of environment that she would want, where it is not simply a case of one group of people being able to dictate or to facilitate what they consider to be appropriate, but to be able to hear from other actors and players in the society. So, sir, philosophically, I have no difficulty with that aspect as well. And I would want, sir, before I sit, to encourage honorable senators to recognize that we have a responsibility to our country. And sir, you know, the persons that have been identified come with specific knowledge, specific expertise, specific competence to help the government in its agenda to move this country forward and to ensure that we are able to provide sustainable development. I ask honorable senators, therefore, sir, to give government that opportunity to utilize the resources, to give Her Excellency the opportunity to utilize the resource that she has identified and to support this bill, and therefore ensure that we are able to do the work that is necessary to facilitate the sustainable development of our beloved nation. I thank you, sir.
Mr. President, I want to make just a few comments, and I'm going to restrict my comments really to the qualifications for membership of the Senate. Mr. President, there can be no doubt whatsoever, and I'm sure that we've all been told already from the number of speakers we've had so far that the amendment is to facilitate 3 senators taking their seat in this honorable chamber. Oh. And I want to do perhaps what others have not done so far, which is I want to highly commend the 2, should we call them temporary senators, Senator Williams and Senator Bradshaw, for having accepted the offer to sit in the chamber, knowing full well that it is only for a short time, but a brief moment. And I know that you are here simply because you want to see the work of government carried on, the work in the Senate carried on in the absence of the members who are to be sworn in. Now, those members are Mr. Rawdon Adams, and I understand he was living in France, and Miss Kay McConney, born like me in St. Philip, and who was residing in Canada. Miss Althea Wiggins, I understand she was living in the United Kingdom. But the point is that there are 3 Barbadians, and I mean Barbadian to the bone, all of them. And they want to make a contribution to Barbados. An opportunity has been offered to them, and there is some restriction in their way, and we want to get rid of that restriction. Now, I agree with Senator Franklin that when it comes to the Constitution, you should not be changing the Constitution for any fanciful or whimsical reason. I agree with that. That is why we have to get a 2/3 majority in the other place, a 2/3 majority in this place. It is nothing that we're doing whimsically or fancifully. But at the same time, I want to make the point that there is no country in this world that can say that they have a perfect constitution that will never need amendment. Everybody's constitution, every country's constitution, at some time has to be amended. It is a living document. A constitution should never be regarded as untouchable. There must be amendments to it because this is a changing world. And ever so often, there is need to readjust, to remodel, and even to rectify our constitution to keep abreast of changing times. We cannot be like dinosaurs. The rules that applied 50 years ago, those rules are obsolete. Some of them are obsolete and out of fashion today. And I repeat, we cannot be acting like dinosaurs, saying we can't touch this clause or touch that clause. And what is happening in this Senate today is nothing unusual. Constitutions the world over get amended every day. So we are already making this amendment to make provision for something which I believe the framers of the law did not anticipate. This is what I will consider to be a positive response to an unforeseen situation. And such amendments are healthy. Such amendments are very, very healthy. And there's no need for this debate to be a political debate. We don't have to put a political spin on this. We will have numerous occasions from time to time in this chamber for debates far more political than this. And I don't think this is one of those occasions. In fact, one of the Governor General's appointees, I believe, finds herself in this situation here as well. And I don't see why we should drag that person into the politics of this debate. Now, when I look at the section is section 37. And it says that the person has to be a citizen of Barbados of the age of 21 years or upwards. And the most important word is that little conjunction that comes after that, and. So you have to be a citizen of Barbados and has been ordinarily resident in Barbados for immediately preceding 12 months, for the immediate preceding 12 months. It is that and that has us in this pickle, the and. If it had stopped there just at being a citizen, and it had not gone on to say, and it has to be resident 12 consecutive months before, then it would have gone clear. But that and is what puts us in the pickle. And therefore, it becomes a constitutional issue. That is why we have to touch it. And as I said, this happens daily. Nothing strange about it. It is a legal issue, and we are trying to make the most out of this situation. And sometimes, we have to question, I had to do it when I was thinking about it, question the thinking of the framers of the law at the time. Why was there such a strict residency clause in the Constitution? why that strict residency clause? I know that in some Caribbean islands, you have a situation where the person must be a born citizen to be elected to the House of Assembly or the Senate and so on. And even that, I understand, is changing as well. But I would want to know what would have gone through the thinking of the framers of the law at the time. And I would like to hear an explanation to that. Should that one-year residency clause apply to Barbadians whose naval strings are buried here? A 1 year that you have to be. I know the Adams boys, they went to school at Harrison College. Douglas and Rawdon. I know that Miss McConney, I think she went to Queen's College. Queen's College? Seems as though I'm correct. But she went to Canada as the consul. She was as the consul general, and I think to ask her now to come back and qualify by residing here is almost like a punishment. It's like a punishment that you were the consul general there working on behalf of Barbados. You have your family there now, but you have to come back. And I think it's like a punishment. And this is what we are trying to remove, that I'm sure that the other speakers have used the term to discriminate against her. And I don't think this is what we would want to do. I think if you're going to put a 1 year residency clause, and you had a non-Barbadian, and you were going to say that this non-Barbadian had to be resident here for 12 years before, I could give that some consideration. But I don't see why you could have a citizen of the country. You qualify the right as a citizen. And I think that should be enough to qualify you. It is the residency clause, as Mr. Grant said, Senator Grant said, which I think is extremely baffling. Now, I have listened to the members as they debated. I've listened in particular to Senator Franklin. And I want to assure Senator Franklin that the alacrity with which he spoke, that has to do, excuse me, with efficiency. It does not have to do with anything devious whatsoever. It has to do with efficiency and getting things working. And I was a bit taken aback when he used the term elitism to refer to, well, he can refer to K. McConney as an elitist. He can refer to Mr. Begins as an elitist. I would believe that he is simply referring to Mr. Adams.
The misdescription.
And I do not want to get into it, but the most I will say about that is that I was a bit taken aback when the term elitist would have been used to describe the son of a man who has literally lived his life for this country, lived his life in Barbados, to make a contribution to this country. And his son is coming back to do something, and the only word which could be found to describe him is elitist. It is insulting. It is insulting. And he asked the question, what is there so special about these people who are coming back? Well, that is not Senator Franklin's call. If they are special to the people who want them appointed, whether it is the Governor General or whether it is the Prime Minister. They are the people who know what they want and know who they want. And therefore, I do not think that it is Senator Franklin's decision to determine who sits in this Senate. That is not his call. Dictatorship. Easy word to call. Easy because of the majority that you have. You have a big majority. So that word is on the tip of everybody's tongue. And therefore, you throw it up there and people may want to hold on to it. But what has been done in this matter that we can describe it as a dictatorship? Absolutely nothing. In fact, if you judge by the way in which the Prime Minister has set about doing her work. No. It has so much to do with interaction with the people and letting the people know what is going on and going to them. I do not see how the term dictatorship can come in. But to throw them around, you know, I don't. But Mr. President, my personal view on the whole question of the qualification for the membership of the Senate is that once you are a Barbadian citizen, once you are a citizen of Barbados, you should be able to serve without any restriction whatsoever on your residency. That is my personal position. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. President, I give my wholehearted support to this bill.
Senator John Williams.
President, I raise to the list a very brief contribution this afternoon, recognizing the also brevity of the tenure of this Honourable Senate. And I would want to begin, sir, first by congratulating you on your ascension to the presidency of this Honourable Chamber. I would also want to wish every single Honourable Senator going forward a successful period in this hallowed place. I have had the privilege since 1981, going back as far as 1981, in this place. And having said that, there is also the point that I've heard some contributions today that were indeed excellent, particularly coming from first members. It was refreshing. Senator Franklin begins to feel comfortable. I've heard contributions that wash the entire spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, I heard contributions that we will all remember well and well. At the other end of the spectrum was Senator Franklin. We shall also remember that. But Mr. President, in that regard, I want to first express my congratulations to Senator Boyce, who I thought located the issue with respect to persons with dual citizenship as it ought to have been located, because all his references were on point. I believe that the framers of our Constitution understood from as far back as 1966 that a Constitution is a lived document. It is nothing that is static, and that they recognize that from time to time we will have to change it. We all remember the 1974 amendments as early in the life of that Constitution. In 1974, we had a raft of amendments to our Constitution. Already this morning, someone alluded to the amendment of 2008. But there's one thing that bothered me during the period of time that I had the fortune to work with the late Tom Adams or former Prime Minister. I listened to Senator Franklin in nearly say, humbly say, a disparaging way where he made references to Senate. But I worked with Tom Adams, a man who has the common touch of anybody in this country. And in that time that I worked with him, I was parliamentary secretary with responsibility for immigration. I'm going to reference this point, allow this chamber to understand that it becomes necessary to change the Constitution when in truth and in fact there is reason, justified reason to do so. It used to pain me, Mr. President, when applications came before me, where a Barbadian man could go overseas, marry somebody who is not Barbadian, and both wife, children, became citizens by descent. Barbadian woman who went overseas, got married to a non-Barbadian, she could not get the same equivalence as a man. So I would have to, through you, Mr. President, ask Senator Franklin if he would have thought that that was an appropriate opportunity to change the constitution. But he said, he gave me the impression that it is something they ought not to change. But happily, they said it was indeed changed, where the parity was given between a man and a woman. So, as I said, it's a lived document, and from time to time we will have to change it, but for the right reasons. Now, I would have thought that Senator Franklin would have used the opportunity to read the document to which he alluded, which was the Constitution Review Commission report. Because in here, if he had done so, rather than give the Senate and the people of Barbados the impression that this was something that was just rushed through, it was a recognition as far back as when that commission looked at this, the whole issue of people having dual citizenship and being able to make a contribution back in their own country. It came up as an issue, and it is also referenced. So, for me, it is simply that Senator Franklin believes that tomorrow he is going to get the headlines in the newspaper, or tonight on the television.
A point of order, Mr. Chairman. I resent that strongly. I listened to him, and I was laughing all along, but I resent that. I want it withdrawn. I am not here looking for any headlines. I am here giving my honest opinion about something. And I resent any senator in here belittling what I said and trying to give the impression that I am looking for headlines. No, I don't care who feels it. He feels it, but not expressing it here because it goes out. And it is a defamation, Mr. Chairman. I honestly believe he should withdraw with an apology.
I think we can all accept that Senator Franklin is no headline seeker. You may wish to reformulate your comment.
Mr. President, I just want to remind you, the chair, and the other honorable members, that I said in my considered opinion. If you ask me to withdraw, I can do that. But it does not stop me from believing so, because I firmly believe so. But if you tell me that my belief is unparliamentary, then I can withdraw it. I will make your ruling, sir.
I would much prefer that you withdraw it. I gave you the opportunity to reformulate it, but you insist that I should rule, and I rule that it should be withdrawn.
Withdrawn, Mr. President. But let me say that this is a serious chamber.
Yes, but just a minute.
And when we have issues like these, where it talks about the Constitution, Barbadians have to understand and appreciate that when a government brings a bill of this nature, it doesn't do so in any whimsical manner, but it brings it for the right reason. And as I said, I would humbly suggest, I'm sorry I have to make reference to Senator Franklin again, but that he would just go and reflect on the contribution of Senator Boyce, because his contribution clearly explained to us why we are here and why a bill of this nature could be before this chamber. But, as I said, there were occasions when we had to change the Constitution, and it was done so. And I alluded to my own experience working in government. I have one other point to raise, and that has to do with Section 43 of the Constitution. Now, Section 43 reads as follows. It says, subject to the provision of Section 44, a person who is a citizen of Barbados at the age of 21 and upwards, that is Part A. And Part B says, and has such connection with Barbados by residence therein as may be prescribed by Parliament, which is significantly different in substance from the qualification of a person in this honorable chamber. And I don't want to put weight in terms of importance of the two chambers, but if in another chamber this kind of language is satisfactory, then I firmly believe that this particular bill is properly before us, properly located, as Senator Boyce has said, and there's every reason why it should get the support of all members of this chamber. I humbly believe so, sir. And with not wanting to delay us any longer, I just simply want to urge members that when a small country has the ability to be able to use the knowledge, the skills, and the abilities of its people inside and outside of the country and across the diaspora, we ought to be able to do so. It is a wonderful thing to be able for a government to have persons who can sit around a table, who come from different jurisdictions with different experiences, to bring their thoughts to bear on the issues of the day. Barbados is at a critical juncture, and I believe that those people to whom we refer are people who can make a difference, make a contribution to the development of this country. And I so ask every single senator this afternoon to give this bill its full support. I'm obliged to you, sir.
Yes, Senator Sachs.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before I commence my first contribution to this honorable Senate, I would first like to congratulate you, Mr. President, on your appointment as President of the Senate. I would also like to commend the government of the day for staying true to its promise that they would intend to empower young people. I believe that my appointment in the Senate, as well as my colleague, Senator Dr. Kristen Hayes' appointment to this Senate, is testament to the fact that the government is capable and is willing to empower young people and restore the voices of young people so that it can be heard at all levels of this country. Now today, I've listened to all of the senators, honorable senators, as well as senators, if that's the correct term, just senators. And I've listened to all of your contributions. So my contribution right now has been circumvented. Sir. This is what I've heard this afternoon. No. Even though there are 4 proposed amendments to the Constitution this afternoon, in principle, there's actually only 3 real issues that we're discussing. The qualifications for membership of the Senate, the disqualification for members of the Senate and House of Assembly, and vacancies in the office of the Leader of the Opposition. Now, I will address the qualification and disqualification for members of the Senate and House of Assembly together. But before I do that, taking into consideration that the first 2 issues, which are the amendments to clauses 37, 38, and 44, relates to citizenship and residency, it would be remiss of me not to place those issues into the proper context of the Constitution. So that we may have a better understanding of the nature and the objective with which this bill has been proposed, I intend to do so. Now, this Constitution of Barbados was constructed, framed, and enacted in 1966. It provides a framework for the establishment of Barbadian citizenship, amongst other things. The admiration and recognition of Barbadian citizenship is so enshrined within the Constitution that rather than rejecting Barbadian citizenship of individuals who have citizenship in another country, it allows those individuals the opportunity to determine whether or not they want to keep or renounce their citizenship. The devotion to the Barbadian citizenship is so embedded within this constitution that if a Barbadian citizen intended to become a citizen or national in another country, he would only have a short time limit in order to do so. The time limit is 6 months. So if that 6 months period has elapsed and that Barbadian has not been successful in obtaining alternative citizenship, even though he don't want to be a Barbadian, the Constitution will still keep him as a Barbadian. He will be deemed to remain as a Barbadian. So if the Constitution recognizes two types of persons, persons with dual citizenship and persons who do not want to keep their citizenship, why is it that we here today will have an issue in debating the fact that persons who have dual citizenship in this country should be prevented from making a contribution to this country? No. I am strongly of the view that this is a profound aspect of the Constitution, as it gives insight to the intention of the framers of the Constitution. It suggests that notwithstanding that other nationalities or citizenships that persons may obtain in other countries, as long as your naval string is buried in Barbados, this Constitution will continue to recognize you as a Barbadian citizen first. And consequently, it should follow that the same Barbadian individual should be afforded the same rights and benefits of all other Barbadians by the fact that they are citizens of this country. The Constitution does not make provisions for second-class citizens in Barbados. We are all one and the same, citizens of Barbados outright. The proposed amendments to Section 37, 38, and 44 merely seek to remedy what I may term as an anomaly within the Constitution. Section 37B prohibits a Barbadian citizen from qualifying for membership to the Senate if they have not been ordinarily resident in Barbados for the immediately preceding 12 months. Now, bearing in mind that this provision was framed almost 52 years ago, the framers of the Constitution, despite all of their wisdom, quite arguably would not have envisioned the current world that we live in today, far less the modernization of Barbados today. So much has changed over the last 52 years. International travel has become more accessible to most persons within the world. More Barbadian citizens are now working and studying abroad. There are a number of young people who were forced to migrate overseas due to the lack of job opportunities over the last 10 years in this country. Some of them have even become trained experts within a particular field, or some of them may have been exposed to different and new advanced technology and information. And what they all have in common is that this new skill that they possess can actually be used to the benefit of the transformation of Barbados. So some of these Bajan men, some of these Bajan women, Barbadian men and women, they would want to utilize their knowledge, their skills, to effect the positive change that this country so desperately needs. They would want to help with the development and stabilization of their homeland. These persons want to contribute at a governmental level in this country. If they so chose to do so, they should not be prevented from doing it. Therefore, in a modern Barbados, where Barbadians are constantly traveling in and out of the jurisdiction, either for business or for pleasure, it cannot be logical, nor could it have been the intention of the Constitution to discriminate and disadvantage Barbadian citizens from qualifying for membership to the Senate, simply because they are not ordinarily resident in Barbados in the immediately 12 preceding months. In relation to the disqualification of the membership of the Assembly and the Senate, Sections 38 and 44 currently disqualifies an individual for membership of the Senate and the House of Assembly respectively, who is by virtue on his own act under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. So in other words, Sections 38 and 44 disqualifies a Barbadian if he has dual citizenship. Now, I am strongly of the view that this clause contains several deficiencies, especially in relation to the vagueness of its archaic wording and the uncertainty that it creates in respect to its scope. What exactly does that mean? It does not specifically mention dual citizenship, but we interpret it to mean so. We could be wrong. It is not clear within the wording of the Constitution. Now, while I might appreciate the objectiveness of the clause 52 years ago, in a modern Barbados, it certainly will have political and practical implications for Barbadians. For example, those same young persons that I mentioned earlier, they may have given birth to children while they were working or studying overseas. Some of them might have not been interested in acquiring foreign citizenship in the country that they were currently residing. So they may decide to come back to Barbados, but they will be bringing back a child who now has foreign citizenship in the country that they are now returning from. And in most instances, these children will grow up, reside in Barbados for the rest of their lives. So ultimately, we end up with a number of individuals who may have foreign citizenship as a result of being born outside of Barbados jurisdiction, as well as a person who would also have Barbadian citizenship through the right of application. So effectively, we are having individuals now with dual citizenship. Now, these persons call Barbados home. They only have community ties in Barbados. All they know is Barbados. Is it right? Can it be seen to be the intention of a constitution that persons of that nature should be precluded from contributing to Barbados at a governmental level because their mother, not them, their mother gave birth to them in a foreign country? I am of the view that the citizens of Barbados should not be deprived of an opportunity to contribute and serve the country they call home, simply because they have citizenship in a foreign country through no fault of their own. These clauses deprive our country of the right to reap the full benefit of the wide pool of talented Barbadians that exist across the entire globe. In a modern Barbados, we should not be opposed to removing outdated and archaic provisions of law. Barbados should be aspiring to operate at an international level, an international standard. And coincidentally, during my research, it was revealed to me that Barbados is in fact a party to the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. Now, Article 25 in that covenant states that every citizen should have the right and the opportunity to be elected at genuine periodic elections. Now, while this might not bear direct relation to Section 38, which deals with the appointment of senators, this clause bears relation to Clause 44 and may arguably be in contravention with the article, which we are now a party to, as the article focuses on the protecting of rights of citizens in spite of whether he has dual citizenship or not. Citizens come first. Dual citizenship is a secondary issue. Finally, in respect of Section 75, Clause 75, the resounding victory of the Barbados Labour Party at the polls has exposed a lacuna in the law, which needs to be remedied. Even though the potential crisis has apparently been averted by the occupation of the office of the leader of the opposition by the Honourable Member of Parliament, Mr. Joe Atherley. But having identified this lacuna, the government now has a duty to rectify the issue so that it does not manifest itself in the future. The government should be commended for undertaking this task, as it effectively ensures that the Governor General will always have the latitude to appoint an opposition leader to keep checks and balances on the business of Parliament. So in closing, in light of all that I have said, These proposed amendments will eradicate discrimination against patriotic Barbadians who have dual citizenship and modernize our constitution with the removal of outdated and impractical clauses. I stand here before you in support of this amendment, and I ask that you do share this support and allow this bill to its passage.
Next recognized Senator Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I don't propose to spend a lot of time regurgitating what my learned colleagues have discussed. I think that the bill in its format has been fully ventilated, both in relation to the issues of membership to the Senate, disqualification, and the issue of the vacancy of the leader of the opposition. So, surprise, surprise, my contribution is going to be somewhat brief. As it relates to the proposed amendment to Section 75 of the Constitution, and before I get into that, I would like to say, though, notwithstanding the comments made that we are moving in a global environment and we have to be on time and we need to move quicker pace and we need to keep up with the times, I still firmly believe that if we're seeking to amend the supreme law of the land, it warrants taking some time to ensure that we get it right, and also that we follow procedure. My DNA and my training is procedure, because no matter what we do, if procedure is wrong, whatever we've done is still wrong. So I say that not to be an obstructionist or not to suggest that we are not trying to modernize our situation, because yes, if we have a constitution that was drafted before I was born, ish, we would need by natural, it's a living document, it's a dynamic document, not quite like the Bible, but we would need to take into consideration the changing times. That does not mean, however, that it is something that one would want to do, having been sworn in on Monday this week, attend the opening of Parliament Tuesday this week. You have Wednesday when you get your proposed bill, and you're here this week, Friday. So in essence, you had a day and some to look at an amendment to the Constitution of Barbados. So in that regard, I would say we should have had more time to look at this. And while Senator Williams may not wish me to say this, there may be some merit in some of the submissions that Senator Franklin made, some, Mr. Senator Williams, some. Okay? I stand, Mr. President, with the comments made by Senator Boyce. I think it was an excellent presentation. He did me proud as junior counsel. He did his research and he did well. But I would say, though, that having said that, and having heard my colleagues, I would suggest, as it relates to the proposed amendment to Section 75 of the Constitution, first and foremost, this, as I believe Senator Boyce said, this, the proposed amendment needs help. And I know you started off, Senator Walcott, by suggesting that there's only one being that's infallible. So you prepared the wicket and you covered yourself by saying basically, you know that this draft here leaves a lot to be desired. And I would suggest, simply because we have put the amendment to Section 75 onto the amendment to Sections 38, 37, and 44. So you've made one bill to deal with the amendment to the Constitution when really and truly, as Senator Sands says, we're dealing with, in essence, two different issues. Qualification, disqualification, and the vacancy of the leader of the opposition. It is my humble opinion that they should be separated. If we're going to deal with the dual citizenship / qualification, disqualification, let's deal with that. And if you wish, since y'all made me read this stuff and go back to my constitution, which I have not looked at in any detail instance, a few years ago when I was in first year law, a few years ago, okay, I don't understand. Mr. President, Mr. Boyce has laughed out, and on a point of order. A few years, I don't understand him, Anyway.
But I noticed he hasn't said how long ago.
I'm thinking that, so we are prepared to some extent. Well, we are prepared. Mr. Boyce has demonstrated. I can speak to the issue. But it's a different issue than this issue with the leader of the opposition and the vacancy. There's certain terms used in the proposed amendment that I don't even know if we're allowed to use in terms of framing the legislation. Now, there are some of us who would be more capable of drafting legislation than others in this August chamber, but the fact remains I don't think any of us are specifically trained in legislative drafting. And in that sense, I believe that this particular section would want more attention, more time, more drafting time, spending some more time on this. So for purposes of what I understand and what I believe that I have picked up from my colleagues, and because I can read other places, for purposes of achieving the objective of the governance of the country is what is being said. Am I right? I know nobody has gone up on a point of order, so I believe I'm right. I believe we should separate the bill. Sever Section 75, more so because it is no longer urgent. There is a leader of the opposition. So we can have time to ruminate on the amendment to Section 75 to determine whether it is in fact necessary, or if at all, if we're going to do an amendment, how we should do the amendment, and leave the qualification and disqualification for this sitting, this session, and take out 75 from the bill, redraft the bill or whatever you do when you're going to amend the bill, and put just the qualification and disqualification to the upper chamber to be voted upon for purposes of achieving the objective of letting the esteemed persons who have been named, and it's not necessarily that they will come, because as far as I'm concerned, we have Senator Williams and Senator Bradshaw. My reading of the Constitution does not allow for a temporary anything. So as far as I'm concerned, we have two August gentlemen in here. So you are fully constituted on that side as far as I'm concerned. So, but we're hearing of other names. So therefore, in the event that they wish to give way to other persons, and we need to get on with the governance of the country and fully constitute this chamber for purposes of expediency, is that the word? And in the interest of the country, which is my remit, I suggest we remove Section 75 and defer it for another time when everyone can have time, and that the one we get to review has had some more time spent on by those who are skilled and trained to do so. That is my suggestion as it relates to today's sit-in, Mr. President, and therefore, sir, having made that submission, with your leave, I sit, sir.
Recognize Senator Moore.
I rise to make my contribution today to this bill. First, I would like to congratulate the President on his ascendancy to his office in these chambers. Like my fellow senators who spoke before me, I have somewhat, I guess, mixed feelings about dual citizenship. Many Barbadians over the years have worked and studied abroad, including my own parents. Like one of my fellow senators who spoke before me, I don't think I would be here in this chamber today if my parents, who met abroad studying and worked abroad, had not met. I wouldn't be here. My mother is of Jamaican heritage, so I guess I would not be considered 100% Bajan. But in my mind, I'm certainly 100% Bajan. I was born here, went to school here, and I live here. I did go to school, yes, with some of my fellow senators. And I just want to say that I listened to people speaking on the issue of a person's ability to be a member of this hallowed chamber if they have lived abroad and not been here within the last 12 months. Like many other people, I've lived all over I've worked, I should say, all over the Caribbean. And I can say, for me, it's with some pride that I feel when I see other Barbadians working in these other islands. You know, Barbados has had a tradition for many, many years, long before I've been around, where Barbadians have worked all over the world. And not just in any particular area. We have people working in the legal field abroad, policemen. We have people working as nurses, as teachers, and all walks of life. It's not in any particular area that they are working abroad. What they are doing is making a contribution to their lives and that of their families. In a country that's only 166 square miles, oftentimes the opportunities for Barbadians don't exist here. Opportunities for further education may not exist. I mean, we have many people who are doctors and have gone abroad to specialize. I'm sure some of my fellow senators would understand that were they to stay here, they would not have been able to specialize and be the doctors that they are today. And that's true for most areas, most professions. Now, in terms of employment, Barbados is part of a global society, and many Barbadians will take the opportunity to go abroad and work. And that allows them to not just advance themselves, but oftentimes to support their families. Now, in relation to the three individuals that we are here speaking about, all three of them have worked and had outstanding contributions abroad. I don't think we can fault the contributions any of them have made in their chosen professions abroad. I recall, for me personally, my own father, who worked in several Caribbean countries over the years before returning here. And what I can say is, like many other Barbadians, he did it in order to support his family. And it's due to those opportunities that both myself and my siblings had the opportunity to further our own careers by his ability to have that opportunity to work and support his family. So, taking this point into consideration, I certainly do not believe for one moment that we should disqualify any Barbadian who has lived abroad in order to advance themselves, their families, their careers, and who have all done this country extremely proud. Now, I want to touch on another subject that was mentioned here today, and it's something I feel strongly about. I heard one of my fellow colleagues, Mr. President, here in the Senate, speak about privilege and individuals who seem, from what I understood, from what he said, to have some level of, and I stand corrected, but I think one would interpret it as some kind of elitist type circumstance. I've always felt that we are all Barbadians. Barbadians are Barbadians regardless of whether they are born rich, whether they're born poor. They're Barbadians regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of their religion, regardless of their gender. We are Barbadians. I think that when lawmakers start to try to divide us based on differences that one has no control of, it is the wrong message that we send to our citizens, especially the young people of this country. I do not care, Mr. President, whether someone is black, white, Indian, Asian. I don't care if they're rich, poor, male, female. We are all Barbadians. And I think that we should all reflect and ensure that we try to always live up to what we know is right when it comes to how we speak about each other. Because what I can say to you is that a person oftentimes has no control over where they're born, how they're born, in what circumstance they're born, and they should not be penalized for it. And I would hope that my colleagues here in this chamber will always remember that when they make their contributions. The only thing that we as Barbadians can control is what we do with our lives. So, having said that, I will wrap up because I only plan to make a very brief contribution to this debate, because I think all that needs to be said on the qualification and disqualification has been said very ably by all of the members here today, the majority of members here today. And so I will wrap up by saying, I hope my fellow senators here will understand that we need to support these two sections 37, 38, and 44, because these individuals that we're speaking about should not be disqualified from sitting here, simply because, one, in the circumstance where there's a residency requirement, two, dual citizenship really should not play a part in our deliberations in 2018 when we think as to what happens with most persons who have to earn a living and to be educated. My final comment would be to say, I listened today to some very young people, my fellow senators, and I will say to you that I was quite touched and impressed by the contribution that the young ones on my side made. And I will wrap up now and say to you, I hope everyone will give their fullest support to this bill. I'm obliged to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I rise to wrap up and debate on this this bill, I want to first, like some of those who preceded me, thank and commend the new senators who have spoken on both sides of the table. It augurs well for this session in terms of the quality and the level of debate. And I'm pleased, I acknowledge the complaints about the length of time, but it pleases me more, and I'm amazed the amount of research that was possible by all honorable senators who spoke in that 36 or 48 hours. It shows the capacity once you put yourself through it.
Quality of the senator.
But I must comment on a few comments that were made during the course of the debate. Senator Franklin, I accepted a lot of what you said, although I was taken aback by your comment about elitism, and this being specifically for elites, as you said it. I know you didn't mean it. I know it was the heat of the moment, and perhaps it was a bit of nervousness. I understand, speaking for the first time in this, that it would have taken, out of you. But all in all, I take your comments. I know you for several years. I know your sincerity. And I also want to praise Senator Boyce. Praise Senator Boyce. In the past, we have not praised each other, but there's always a time for forgiveness, Mr. President. And I take his concern about consultation and communication, and I believe we are on the same wavelength in terms of doing this. There's not much else for me to say before I wrap up, Mr. President, except to say that I've heard the comments, I've taken note of the concerns expressed by senators on both sides, but especially those independent senators on the other side. And I would like to assure them that I have taken their concerns into I've appreciated them, and we will see as we go through the process as we deal with these amendments. With those words, Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill be now read a second time.
We move that this bill be now read a second time. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any dissenting voices? So, you will call you what?
Mr. President, I do beg that you, and I move that you, Your Honor, do not leave the chair, and the Honorable Senate resolves itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
Motion is that this House now resolve itself into committee for the further consideration of this.
Many members.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The Senate is now in committee.
Clause 1. Mr. Deputy President, I beg to move that Clause 1 stand fast.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part.
Mr. Chairman, I do not. I do not wish to belabor the point much longer, but I think I have to say that honorable senators were behaving in this debate as though they were being disadvantaged in some way, or that the government was being disadvantaged in some way, and that this thing sneak up and from behind and bit them. It could only have sneaked up from behind and bit somebody if they had not been familiar with the Constitution, because this clause was in here from 1966. So to appoint someone, or to recommend the appointment of someone who you ought to know or ought to have known does not qualify for the position, and hence the embarrassment that the government finds itself, you know. And I don't mind what face you put on it. It smacks of a person who has not done the homework, and I do not want to be.
On point of order, I would like to remind the Honourable Senator that it is not only...
What is your point of order?
in reference to...
Are you saying that the
He's
Honourable...
misleading the Senate.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you. May I expound?
Go ahead.
So, the reference was that the government is embarrassed and made a mistake because made selections of people who did not meet the requisite qualification. I would recommend you that an independent senator nominated by Her Excellency is also on the list, and I would recommend that you just be a little careful when you are also speaking about Her Excellency's nominee. Thank you.
Thank you, but my understanding.
No, we are here on clause 1, and clause 1 is the short title to the bill.
So you object?
So
But then I was saying,
you are. This is a specific. This is a specific short one. Clause 1 is the title. If you're going to address any issue, it has to be an issue dealing with the short title. The question is that clause 1 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 2?
Chairman, I beg that stand clause 2 stand apart.
Mr. Chairman, I hope I don't have to rewind and repeat everything I said, but Section 37, second time it was amended and since this Constitution was in place, it spoke, and the first time you had to be a Commonwealth citizen, they changed that to Barbadian citizen, and now they're changing it back to Barbadian citizen with, and they're taking out the section where you're dealing with the residency requirement. Mr. Chairman, as I out of order said a few minutes ago, it smacks of persons who have not done their homework. I've heard a comment that said that Her Excellency nomination falls in that category too. Well, we can't discuss anything that Her Excellency has done in this chamber. My understanding is that that person is the diplomatic person. And a diplomatic person, residency is always in Barbados. I don't know if that is true or not, but I am saying that that's what I understand. But my position on the government too, the government ought to have known, that this provision is not new. It is, the Constitution is not something that they spring upon you the day you get elected, then you get elected, the returning officer says, here's the Constitution, learn it. These are people who were in the government for 30 years. They should be familiar with the Constitution and avoid this embarrassment.
Mr. Chairman.
Section 2, I'm seeing 2 full stops after Senator. Could we remove the second one?
at the end of the quotation, there's a full stop outside of the inverted commas. After senator, could we take that out, please? And where the quote ends, the quotation mark ends. And I don't know, I know that, this is just really me. I know that the existing, the clause as it currently stands makes reference to 21 years or upwards. I just find upwards does not suit the Constitution. It doesn't sound legal enough. I don't know if the legal luminaries here can come up with something better than or upwards, or they just, that might involve time.
The only thing is that would have been in the law forever and ever. Nearly all of the laws
All of
that
them
deal
say
with
or upward?
this age have.
Well, I'm guided. I just thought if we're amending, we could improve since we're becoming modern. I was just hoping we could find something better to say than an upwards or upwards, but that's the only thing I have.
The only other word you could use perhaps is more, but upwards.
20 with one O though.
Yeah.
That was all I was asking for. Other than that, I'm
But
fine with
take
it.
out the inverted commas.
No, not, you don't take on the American, take off the extra full stop.
The extra full stop.
Yes, thank you.
So where the other inverted commas are?
At the start of qualification.
Where the other one?
At the, on top of 37 at the start of qualification.
Did everybody understand? Did everybody understand? So after senator, there's a inverted commas and then an extra full stop.
The question is that clause 2, stand part, as amended.
Yes, that's the first option, yeah.
Clause 3?
For the change? Yeah. As amended, as amended.
But I didn't hear what you asked.
All those in favor? Jerome. All those in favor?
I heard it, but we didn't hear it.
The question is that clause 2 as amended stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. You come to clause 3 now? So you got a must everything, right? Okay. I have been advised by the clerk that we need to. The question is that clause 2 as amended stand part. All honorable members in favor, please. As amended, stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 3?
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 3 stand part.
The question is that clause 3 stand part. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes,
Before you put the question, President, Mr. Chairman,
Go on.
through you, sir. In the course of my contribution, sir, I had made a reference to the Australian Parliamentary Joint Committee when they had considered the repeal of a similar section. And I just want again to bring to members of the Senate the alternative to removal of the clause, as suggested by the Australians, were to put until Parliament otherwise provides. And I'm bolstered, pardon? I'll get there. And I'm bolstered by the contribution of my fellow Senator Williams, who made reference to section 43 of the Constitution, which does speak to the contemplation of Parliament having the ability to prescribe the requirements. If you turn to section 43, I believe Mr. Williams made this point in his contribution. See in section 43 that subject to the provisions of section 44, any person who is a citizen of Barbados of the age of 21 years or upwards and has such connection with Barbados by resident therein as may be prescribed by Parliament. Already we see that the Constitution contemplates Parliament's ability to prescribe and build on the requirements with regard to the residency.
But this isn't just in the
Yeah, that is. But the concept is already there, and that was pointed out by Senator Williams. So what was done in Australia was when they made the recommendation, they gave two proposals. They said that the sections could be repealed or amended to insert the clause until the Parliament otherwise provides. What I am saying is I wanted to make sure that all the members of the Senate were aware of that alternative, which would give some comfort to those such as Senator Franklin or any member of the population who had some concern with what the speed amendment has gone through with. By doing such an amendment, it will put it within the hands of the lower house, the other place, to prescribe what requirement is necessary and will not require the brutal full-fledged removal. And I'm putting it as something to be considered by the fellow senators.
Mr. Chairman, the comments and suggestion of the Honourable Senator voice have been noted. I beg that clause 3 stand bar.
The question is that clause 3 stand bar. All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 4. Mr. Chairman, I beg that clause 4 stand bar.
The question is that clause 4 stand part. All honourable members in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clause 5. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clause 5 be deleted from this bill.
The question is that clause 5 be deleted from the bill.
Aye.
All honourable members in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say nay. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, consequential to this change, there will be some consequential amendments to the bill as been circulated to honourable senators. On the first page, objects and reasons, paragraph C will be deleted. Paragraph B, at the end, the comma and the and will be removed and replaced by a full stop.
Pardon me?
Okay, let's start at
Objects
paragraph.
and reasons.
Objects and reasons.
Yes.
First page,
Yes.
paragraph C,
Yes.
in bracket C,
Yes.
provision relating to vacancies that has been deleted.
Yes.
Paragraph B, there's a comma and an. You will have a semicolon, sorry, and you will have to remove semicolon and insert a full stop. After qualification, the paragraph A, you will then insert the and there. On page 2, arrangement of sections, number 5 will be deleted. On the next page, paragraph C will be deleted. And the same, we'll have to put a full stop in place of the semicolon and the and put the and at the end. Page 4, of course, the amendment at 5 has been deleted. And the actual amendment, and it means that the existing section 75 in the Constitution remains unchanged. The existing clause 75 in the Constitution remains unchanged. Section 75. Mr. Chairman, I now beg that you report to His Honor, the President. I'm reporting, sir. Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you now report to His Honor, the President, the passing of one bill in committee with amendments.
The question is that I do report to the President the passing of one bill in committee with amendments. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I want to say those against, please say no.
Deputy President has reported, the Chairman has reported to me the passage of one bill in committee with amendments.
Mr. President, I now move that this bill be now read a third time.
It's been moved that this bill be now read a third time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Recognize no dissentient voice.
Is it a bill, the bill or the amended bill that's being read the third time?
Yes, you're inquiring the bill as amended.
Thank you.
Bill as amended. Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill as amended be now read a third time.
Thank you.
It's been moved that the bill is amended be now read a third time. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I think the ayes have it.
Mr. President, I beg to move that this bill do now pass and be cited as the Constitution Amendment Act 2018.
Do you not have to have the President of your, sorry? Other than that, will be a certain.
You have the vote now?
Dr. Walker?
Aye. 18.
Ms. Moore?
Aye.
Dr. Springer? Aye. Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Ms. Holder?
Aye.
Ms. Cummins?
Aye.
Dr. Haynes? Mr. Sands? Mr. Bradshaw? Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Franklin?
No.
Mr. Boyce?
Aye.
Ms. Moore?
Aye.
Reverend Maxwell?
Aye.
Ms. Tate? Ms. Tate?
Aye.
Dr. Maynard? Mr. Greenwich? Mr. President, 16 honorable senators voted in favor of the bill. There was one vote against, and therefore the constitutional requirement that 2/3 majority of the members of the Senate has been satisfied.
Question is that the bill be now passed and be cited as the Constitution Amendment Bill 2018. All honorable members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Please say no. I think the ayes have it. The bill is now being passed.
You're welcome.
Mr. President, I beg to move a motion that this bill having been passed with amendments in this chamber, a message will now be sent to the other place seeking their concurrence in the amendment as passed in this chamber today.
We move that the bill just be passed, be now sent to the other place
For their concurrence.
for their concurrence
In the amendments.
with the amendment.
Report of the Committee of Selection.
Mr. President, Committee of Selection appointed on the 5th of June 2018 at the first sitting of the first session of Parliament of 2018-2023 met on the 5th of June 2018. Present were, Your Honor, Senator the Honourable Miss Lucille Moore, Senator Damien Sands, Senator Caswell A. Franklin, Senator Dr. Christopher Maynard. In attendance were yours truly and Mr. Jones, the Deputy Clerk of Parliament. The committee considered and made the following nominations for appointment to the following committees. Standing Orders Committee, Senator Miss Lynette Holder, Senator Damien Sands, Senator Kevin Boyce, and Senator Caswell Franklin. House Committee, Senator Caswell Franklin, Senator Crystal Haynes, Senator Tony Moore, Senator Dr. Christopher Maynard. Committee of Privileges, Senator Dr. Walcott, Senator Damien Sands, Senator Kevin Boyce, Senator Caswell Franklin. Regulations Committee, Senator Greenwich, Senator Franklin, Senator Nurse, and Senator Reverend Maxwell. Joint Select Committees, the Library Committee, Senator Walcott, Senator Haynes, Senator Springer, Senator Tate, Senator Holder, Senator Franklin. Committee of Public Accounts, Senator Walcott, Senator Moore, Senator Boyce, Senator Cummins, Senator Nurse, and Senator Caswell A. Franklin. The Committee of Selection hereby submits this report accordingly. Mr. President, I beg that this report be now adopted by this honorable chamber.
Senator Boyce.
On a point of order to you, Mr. President, there is a reference to Senator K.H. Boyce, and I hold very strongly to the J in my name. I don't know if that was a deliberate typo to replace the J with the H. Under Select Committee, Standing Order Committee, there's a reference to Senator K.H. Boyce.
On the other page is corrected.
And on the Public Accounts Committee, there's reference to Senator K.H. Boyce. Now, it does beg the question, how did that occur?
Boyce on the privileges too, so it must be two of you.
Twice.
Yes. So President, a correction would be made. President, sorry. This now brings us to the end of government business for today, and I beg to move that the Senate do now adjourn sine die.
Question is that the Senate do now adjourn before the day appointed. All honorable members, senators, sorry, in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Senate stands adjourned. Thank you, man.